Hi. I'm the night clerk. I've been working this shift longer than I should. Long enough to see things. Long enough to write them down. Grab a blanket. Lock the door. If you hear footsteps in the hallway, pretend you're asleep. The night clerk is in. Welcome to the shift.
The Sailor's Nightmare. The Alaskan Hotel, Juneau, Alaska, May 2007. A US Navy sailor from the USS Bunker Hill sent the Alaskan Hotel an email. He wanted their most haunted room. The hotel, built in 1913, gave him what he asked for. 3rd floor. He checked in, smiling. He didn't smile the next morning. What follows is his account, in his words. I want to be clear about something before I tell you this. I don't believe in ghosts. I didn't believe in ghosts. I'm a sailor. I've spent nights on the open ocean in swells that would make most people's knees buckle. I'm not easy to scare. I emailed the hotel as a joke, really. My buddy dared me. I asked for the most haunted room they had, expecting some old-fashioned room with creaky pipes and an overactive imagination. They put me on the 3rd floor. The room was fine. Old, but fine. Smelled like 100 years of wood and cold air coming in off the water. I dropped my bag. I laughed a little to myself. Thought, nothing's going to happen. I'll sleep like a rock, and I'll tell everyone they were all worked up over nothing. I got into bed around 11. I want to be precise about what I'm about to say, because I've turned it over in my head 100 times since, and I need you to understand that I'm not embellishing. Sometime in the deep of the night, I don't know exactly when, but the kind of dark where it feels like 3 a.m. You know that dark. I woke up. Not gradually, all at once, like someone had flipped a switch inside me, and I knew immediately that something was wrong. The room was cold. Not hotel AC cold, the kind of cold that doesn't make sense. I could see my breath. And then there was the sound. It was coming from the corner of the room. A sound like, I don't have a good word for it. Not breathing, exactly. Not quite a voice. Something between the two. Low. Rhythmic. Like something was in that corner of the room that hadn't been there when I fell asleep. I couldn't move. I want to tell you it was sleep paralysis. I want to tell you it was my mind playing tricks on me in an unfamiliar room. I've told myself that version plenty of times. But then, something touched my shoulder. I was out of that bed so fast I don't remember standing up. I hit the light. I checked every inch of that room. I checked the closet, under the bed, behind the curtains. Nothing. I sat in that chair by the window until the sky started to go grey. I didn't sleep. I didn't blink more than I had to. I watched that corner of the room for 5 hours. I checked out at first light. Didn't ask for a refund. Didn't talk to the staff more than I had to. I've been on deployments. I've been in situations I'm not going to describe here. I have never, before or since, felt the kind of fear I felt in that room. I asked for the dark. The dark answered. The woman in room 16. Hotel Vendome, Prescott, Arizona, 1920s to present. Not every ghost story begins with violence. Sometimes love is enough to keep someone tethered to a place long after they should have gone. The Hotel Vendome in Prescott, Arizona, has a ghost named Abby. She died in room 16, and she never left. What follows is the account of the hotel owners who came after, the ones who inherited Abby's story when they inherited the building. In their words, the new owners. When we took on the Vendome, we knew it had history. Every old building does. We'd heard the name Abby Bayer, She and her husband had owned the place before us, lost it to tax debt. The previous owners had kept her on as a manager, let her live in room 16. She died there. That was decades ago. We figured it was a good story to tell curious guests. We didn't figure it was still happening. The first sign was small. Lights in room 16 would turn on by themselves. We'd check the wiring. Nothing wrong. It would happen again. We chalked it up to the age of the building. Then guests started saying things. One woman, businesswoman, no-nonsense type, not the kind who comes looking for ghost stories. She came down to the front desk in the middle of the night. She said she'd woken up feeling something at the foot of the bed, something warm and small, like an animal curling up against her feet. She reached down. Nothing there.
She asked us if the hotel had a cat. We don't have a cat. Abby Burr had a cat. Another guest said he felt someone sit on the edge of his bed. Not imagined. The mattress actually depressed. He sat up. No one was there. But the indentation stayed for a moment before it slowly came back up. A woman on a solo trip said she kept hearing a sound she could only describe as quiet weeping. Not frightening, she said. Heartbreaking. Like someone who had been sad for a very long time. We started to understand what we were dealing with. Abby came to Prescott sick. Tuberculosis. She and her husband built something here. Then he left. Just left her. After everything. She died in this room alone with her cat, while the town she'd tried to make a life in went on outside the window. We have her portrait hanging in the hallway now. It felt right. Room 16 is one of our most requested rooms these days. People want to feel her presence. Most of them come away saying they did. We're not the kind of people who usually talk about things we can't explain. But we've run this hotel long enough now that we've stopped trying to explain Abby. She loved this place. Her husband left. The world moved on. She didn't. Room 16 is the only home she had left. Who are we to tell her she can't stay? The hotel that kept its dead. The Cecil Hotel, Los Angeles, California, 1924 to present. Some hotels have a ghost. The Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles became something else. What follows is the account of a woman who worked the front desk of the Cecil for over 2 decades. She saw it all. She's still not entirely sure what she saw. In her words, the Cecil receptionist. I started at the Cecil in the late 70s. I needed the work. The hotel was a different era. Downtown LA was rough. The Cecil had been grand once, opened in 1924, real brass and chandeliers. But by the time I arrived, it had become what the neighborhood had become. A place for people at the end of things. I learned quickly not to ask too many questions. The suicides had started long before me, going back to the 30s. Management didn't talk about it. You just knew. A guest wouldn't come down for checkout. You'd call the room. No answer. You'd send someone up. Over the years, I won't give you the exact number because I can't say it without feeling it. Over the years, there were a lot of rooms we sent someone up to. There are things I saw working that desk that I have never told my family. There was 1944. I wasn't there yet. This is what the old-timers told me, the ones who were. A woman gave birth alone in her room. She killed the baby. She threw the body from the roof. The hotel stayed open. In the 80s, we had a guest named Ramirez. He paid $14 a night. Cash. He'd come in late. He'd leave early. He smelled like... I don't want to say what he smelled like. We found out later what he'd been doing during those nights he was coming and going. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. He'd been living down the hall from families, from tourists, down the hall from me. Years later, a man named Unterweger, Austrian. He told us he was a journalist. He seemed polished, educated, sat in the lobby sometimes and wrote in a notebook. He killed 3 women while he was staying with us. He chose the Cecil specifically, they said later. He knew what kind of hotel it was. He felt at home here. Elizabeth Short used to come into the bar. I wasn't working here yet, but the bartender told me about her. A beautiful young woman, dark hair. January 1947. She sat at the bar. She drank. She left. They found her body in a vacant lot. They called her the Black Dahlia. They never found who did it. The last time anyone saw her alive, she was in our bar. And then there was Elisa Lam. I was still working the desk in 2013. She checked in at the end of January. 21 years old. Sweet kid. Traveling alone. She'd been posting about her trip online, writing to people back home in Canada. She seemed happy to be seeing the world. She didn't come down for checkout. We called her room. No answer. Guests had been complaining. Water pressure was off. The water tasted wrong. The color was wrong. They found her in the rooftop water tank. 19 days. The police released security footage to help with the investigation. Elevator footage from the night she disappeared. I've watched that video more times than I should have. In the footage, she gets into the elevator. She presses buttons. The doors don't close. She steps out, looks down the hallway, steps back in.
Presses more buttons, and then she starts moving her hands, slowly, deliberately, in these long, fluid patterns, looking out into that hallway at something the camera can't see. Something is there. I don't know what. She walks out of frame. She never comes back. They ruled it accidental. The tank was on the roof. The roof required a key. The hatch was heavy. The questions don't stop if you sit with them long enough. I left the Cecil not long after. 20-something years behind that desk. People ask me sometimes what the Cecil was like, how it felt to work there. I tell them, some buildings decide what they are going to be, and then they become it. The Cecil decided early. Everything that came after was just a building keeping its promise. 3 hotels, 3 voices. A sailor who went looking for proof that the dark holds nothing and found the opposite. Hotel owners who inherited a ghost that loved their building more than she feared death. And a woman who spent 20 years behind a desk while history's worst walked past her and signed their names in the ledger. This is what I've learned, keeping this shift. Everyone who works in a hotel long enough becomes a keeper of other people's worst moments. The things guests bring through the door. The things they leave behind when they go. Sometimes what they leave behind doesn't leave. I'm the night clerk. I'll be here when you come back. Same shift, same desk, same key hanging on the hook for your room.